Would you believe me if I told you that the crushing, glorious weight of eternity, an entire millennium defined by the rise and fall of celestial dynasties, the scorched earth fire of existential wars, and the quiet, iron-willed grace of spiritual rebirth can be measured in just 3 short, deliberate steps? It sounds impossible, a mere trick of the mind, or a poet's desperate exaggeration. Yet, in this specific corner of the world, time does not flow in a predictable, straight line. Instead, it coils and strikes like a dragon, folding the distant past into the frantic present until the two are utterly indistinguishable. Here, history isn't something you read in a leather-bound book. It is something you breathe into your very lungs. Close your eyes for a moment. Let your senses sharpen until the very oxygen around you feels heavy, saturated with the atmospheric burden of 1,000 years. You are standing before the crimson-lacquered gates of an ancient Buddhist pagoda. This isn't merely a structure of wood and stone. It is a living, breathing organism. Its incense-stained foundations have gripped this humid earth since the Middle Ages, surviving floods, fires, and the slow erosion of forgotten centuries. The air here is thick, almost liquid, a narcotic soup of sweet, sharp, burning sandalwood, damp moss clinging to weathered slate, and the rhythmic, whispered prayers of 10,000 ancestors. Their names have long been lost to the monsoon winds, but their spirits remain anchored to these very stones. You can almost feel the vibration of the bronze bells humming in your marrow, a low-frequency pulse tuned to the heartbeat of the earth itself. It is a space where silence isn't the absence of sound, but the heavy, majestic presence of history. Take a single turn, shifting your weight just a few inches, and your shoulder brushes against the cool, arthritic, wrought-iron balcony of a French colonial villa. Its yellow ochre paint, once a defiant symbol of Gallic grandeur and European pretension, is now peeling away in brittle, leprous flakes. It looks like the sun-bleached pages of a Victorian novel left to rot in the unforgiving tropics. This building stands as a silent, crumbling witness to a vanished empire. Its shuttered windows hold the stagnant secrets of a time when fine Bordeaux and crusty baguettes were served amidst the suffocating, malaria-thick humidity of the Indo-Chinese jungle. It is a haunting, beautiful juxtaposition, the elegance of Paris decaying under the relentless, salty assault of a Vietnamese summer. It is a ghost of the 19th century that simply refuses to depart the stage. One more step, and the scent of jasmine and colonial decay gives way to the pungent, invigorating steam of a street food cart. There, a vendor with grease-stained fingers and the razor-sharp caffeinated focus of a high-frequency trader is processing hundreds of digital orders on a glowing smartphone. His face is washed in the cold, clinical blue light of the 21st century, yet his feet are planted firmly on cobblestones laid down by medieval kings. He is a living bridge between eras, a digital nomad operating in a world of ancient trade routes. He is the living proof that the future doesn't replace the past, it simply layers itself on top, a new skin stretched over old, unbreakable bone. This is not a sterile museum where history goes to die, tucked away behind velvet ropes and do not touch signs. This is not a grainy, sepia-toned documentary playing in the hushed, artificial silence of a darkened hall. This is Hanoi, right here and right now. It is a city that refuses to stay buried under the suffocating dust of national archives or the crushing weight of its own tragedies. Instead, the past here is a palimpsest stacked layer upon layer, breathing, pulsating, and living vividly amidst the cacophonous roar of 5 million motorbikes and the swirling, ethereal clouds of ritual smoke that rise every evening to greet the restless dead. Think of this city as a resilient grandmother, over a millennium old, who has survived 10 foreign occupations and 4 different names. She is a woman who has been systematic by colonial powers and who endured the most ferocious, unrelenting aerial bombardments the world has ever seen. Yet, against every impossible odd, she remains seated on her throne. She still cradles her sacred emerald green lakes like family heirlooms. She preserves her ancient, chaotic labyrinth of guild streets with a fierce protectiveness, and she guards that indestructible soul, that Chut Hanoi, which you can only truly feel when you are standing in her very heart, letting the beautiful chaos wash over you like a rising tide. It is a stubborn, elegant survival that defies all Western logic and every law of entropy. But here is the question that keeps me, and perhaps will keep you up at night. How can such a place teach us the most profound lesson about human resilience? How does a city show us how to thrive, not just survive, when the world around us seems to be falling apart at the seams? Today, I want to lead you through 20 centuries of grit and glory. We will explore the hidden details of a city built on water and blood, the moments when real people wept, laughed, and made the agonizing, patriotic decision to burn their own homes to save their country's soul. I want to offer you a perspective I have never shared before, a deep dive into the collective consciousness of a people who refuse to be broken by the wheel of time. Don't look away for a second, because by the end, you will realize that Hanoi isn't just a distant capital on a map. It is a mirror reflecting the untapped strength within our own lives. Hanoi does not archive its history in silence. It piles it in the middle of the street for the world to see. The incense is real. The exhaust-choked traffic is real. The ancient stone walls standing behind that wall of smog are older than the very concept of many modern Western nations. Every layer of the past is physically present, compressed into a tiny, vibrant space where the 11th century constantly bumps into the 21st. It hasn't survived by being an impenetrable fortress or a fenced-off relic. It has survived through a constant, restless, and brilliant negotiation with time. Think about that. 10 occupations, 4 name changes, and the systematic destruction of its physical fabric. Yet the 11th century street layout remains. The lakes remain. The soul remains. This story didn't happen by accident, and it certainly didn't happen the way the dry, sanitized history books might lead you to believe. It happened through a sheer, stubborn refusal to disappear. Long before the city existed, there was only the vast, wild, and unpredictable Red River Delta. In the Bronze Age, this river was a temperamental beast, a red mother carrying thick, reddish-brown silt toward the sea through a dense, primeval jungle. Every year, the waters rose in a terrifying, primal surge, threatening to drown everything in their path. Every year they retreated, leaving behind the gift of life in the form of fertile, nutrient-rich mud. The land was wealthy beyond measure, but it was treacherous. The early people, the ancestors of the Vietnamese, built their homes on high mounds to escape the floods. They grew rice, they fished, and they cast intricate bronze drums, ceremonial masterpieces of the Dong Sun culture that flourished long before the outside world took notice. Imagine the pride of those ancient craftsmen, hammering out sunburst designs and flying cranes that would one day be unearthed as undeniable proof of their genius. They were artists in a land of monsters, laying the foundation for a city that would outlast empires. Then came Koh Loa, a legendary fortress of 3 concentric earthen walls built in the 3rd century BCE. Its moats were fed by the river itself, creating a sophisticated hydraulic defense system that was light years ahead of its time. These people understood a fundamental, elemental truth. To control the water was to control power. That knowledge of the river's whims, the ability to bend the environment to their will, is exactly what saved the city from being erased from the map centuries later. When the Han dynasty arrived from the north, they tried to wipe the slate clean. They sought to erase the local identity, calling the land Jiao Qi, nothing more than a frontier outpost of a distant empire. For nearly 1,000 years, the region existed under the shadow of a foreign giant, but the river kept the land wealthy, and that wealth made it a prize worth fighting for. Ironically, it was during this long period of colonization that Buddhism arrived via Chinese monks and Indian merchants. This foreign religion didn't dilute the local culture. Instead, it was absorbed, chewed up, and transformed. It became one of the strongest pillars of Vietnamese identity, a spiritual shield against their own oppressors. The invaders accidentally gave the people the very spiritual and intellectual tools they would one day use to resist them. It makes you wonder, can the strong ever truly own the soul of the weak? Or do they merely provide the whetstone that sharpens the blade of resistance? The year 1010 changed everything. Emperor Li Tai-to, a visionary leader who could see through the fog of history, decided to move the capital from the cramped safety of the mountains in Honolulu to the open, vulnerable plains of the Red River. Legend says that as his royal boat approached the shore, a great golden dragon soared up from the shimmering water into the blue sky. Taking it as a divine omen, he named the new capital Thăng Long, the soaring dragon. Close your eyes and try to see it. The river a churning vermilion, the air smelling of fresh pine timber and river mud, the rhythmic sound of 1,000 hammers as the first crimson lacquered pillars were raised. The emperor chose the vulnerability of the plains over the security of the mountains. He gambled that connectivity, trade, and fertility were worth the risk of invasion. That single audacious bet, choosing growth over fear, has defined the city's character for 1,000 years. Beyond the high imperial walls, the city organized itself by craft and commerce. Each street became a guild, a hang. Hang Gai sold shimmering silk. Hang Dao dyed fabrics in vibrant sunset hues. Hang Bak crafted delicate silver jewelry. Because the royal taxes were based on the width of a storefront, the people invented tube houses, structures that were impossibly narrow on the street, but incredibly deep, stretching back into hidden courtyards that breathed through open skylights. Architecture became a clever, structural form of tax evasion, a testament to the people's ingenuity. Even today, those street names remain as living ghosts of the past. The commercial layout of the 11th century survives, even though the bricks and mortar have been rebuilt a dozen times. Imagine an ancient silversmith standing where you stand today, he would smile, knowing his descendants are still haggling over the same goods on the exact same corner, his legacy preserved in the very geography of the city. Then came the Mongols, the most feared military force in human history, who swept down 3 times in the 13th century. Each time, the Tran dynasty made a terrifying, bold and heartbreaking decision. They ordered every citizen to evacuate, and then they burned their beloved capital to the ground. They practiced a scorched earth policy, leaving nothing for the Mongol horses to eat or the Mongol soldiers to use. They traded their comfort for their sovereignty. Each time the invaders retreated, defeated by hunger, heat, and the sheer emptiness of the land, the people returned to the hot ashes and began to rebuild. The tube houses rose again. The streets were cleared of debris. Imagine the sheer grit required to put a torch to your own home 3 separate times. I can almost see them standing over the glowing embers, soot on their faces and tears in their eyes, whispering to one another. The wood is gone, but the land is still ours. We will build it better this time. We will build it stronger. In 1407, the Ming dynasty occupied the city for 20 years. They were builders of stone and order, constructing massive foundations to signify their permanence. When the legendary hero Loi finally drove them out after a decade of grueling guerrilla warfare, the Vietnamese didn't tear everything down in a fit of rage. They simply built their new palaces directly on top of the Ming stones. The invaders had inadvertently provided the very foundation for their own defeat. As an American, I find this incredibly powerful. Sometimes your enemy accidentally gives you your strongest weapon. They provide the platform upon which you build your rebirth. The city saw centuries of both imperial glory and bitter division. When the Nguyen dynasty moved the capital south to Hue in the 1800s, they tried to downgrade the status of Thăng Long. In 1831, they renamed it Hanoi, the city between the rivers. They tore down magnificent palaces to build utilitarian military barracks, but the new name stuck, proving to be more resilient than the stone palaces they destroyed. Then the French arrived in the late 19th century with their blueprints and their grand ambitions. They wanted to turn Hanoi into a Paris of the East. They filled in ancient canals to create wide, tree-lined boulevards that smelled of damp earth and ambition. They constructed the massive Long Bien Bridge in 1902, a miracle of steel designed by the same firm as the Eiffel Tower and the opulent Grand Opera House in 1911. But they made a strategic choice. They left the old quarter alone because it was the engine of commerce. Once again, the ancient tube houses survived by being useful. Imagine the 2 parallel worlds existing side by side, the elegant, manicured French villas on one side of the lake, and the crowded, bustling Vietnamese old quarter on the other, both sharing the same sacred waters of Hoan Kiem, yet living in entirely different centuries. the 20th century brought an unimaginable darkness. World War II led to a horrific famine in 1945 where millions perished in the streets, a tragedy that left a permanent scar on the city's collective memory. On September 2nd, 1945, Ho Chi Minh stood in Ba Dinh Square and declared independence to a sea of hopeful faces, but the peace was a fleeting ghost. The French returned, and a bloody 9-year war raged until 1954. Hanoi then became the capital of the North. The grand, once private French villas were partitioned into cramped government offices, and the narrow tube houses were carved up to house multiple families, with 5 or 6 people sharing a single room. The very architecture of the city was forced to adapt to the austere, collective ideology of the time. The city shrank inward, bracing for the next storm. Then came the 1960s, the years of the screaming sirens and the smell of cordite. The Long Bien Bridge, the city's vital artery, was bombed at least 14 times by American planes. After every single raid, repair crews, many of them young women, would scramble out onto the twisted, smoking metal to weld the steel back together. They did it with a deliberate, quiet defiance, as if to say to the pilots above, "We have fixed what you broke. Come back if you must. But we aren't leaving this bridge. It belongs to the river, and the river belongs to us." I once spoke with an elderly woman in a small, damp alleyway in Hanoi who remembered those days with startling clarity. She described the hollow feeling of huddling in a small concrete manhole in the sidewalk as the earth shook with the terrifying rhythmic force of B-52 strikes. She told me, "I held my daughter so tight against my chest I thought I would break her ribs. I wanted her to feel my heart beating so she wouldn't hear the bombs." "Did you ever think about leaving the city for the countryside?" I asked her, struck by her calmness. "Never," she whispered, her eyes turning sharp and bright, reflecting the light of 1,000 years. "We knew we would survive, because this city has never known how to surrender. It's not in our blood." That conversation made me someone who has lived through the many upheavals of Western history shiver with a profound sense of shared humanity. It made me realize that resilience isn't just about strength. It's about the refusal to be moved. When the war finally ended in 1975, Hanoi was exhausted, grey, and impoverished. But in 1986, the Doi Moi economic reforms were announced. Almost overnight, the muscle memory of the city's merchant soul took over. The tube houses threw open their doors for business. Motorbikes flooded the streets in a chaotic, beautiful ballet of commerce and survival. The old quarter roared back to life as if it had only been napping for a few decades, waiting for the signal to rise again. In 2003, during a routine construction project for a new parliament building, workers hit something hard deep in the mud. They uncovered layers of ruins from the Lai, Tran, Lei, and Nguyen dynasties, all stacked neatly on top of each other like a giant stone cake. In 2010, the Thăng Long imperial citadel was recognized by UNESCO. It was physical, undeniable proof that the dragon had never actually left. It was just waiting beneath the surface for its moment to take flight once more. Today, Hoan Kiem Lake remains the city's beating heart. The turtle tower shimmers like a jewel at night, reflected in the emerald water. Families stroll the perimeter in the cool evening air, a living tapestry of the old and the new. Children eat ice cream while staring at their smartphones, oblivious to the ghosts of soldiers and poets walking beside them. That lake has seen it all. Lai merchants, Ming soldiers, French officials, the ragged militia of 1,946 Soviet advisors, and now the tech-savvy, globalized youth of the 21st century. It is a silent witness to the infinite cycle of death and rebirth. From my perspective, that of an American watching the world change at a dizzying, often frightening pace. Hanoi is not just an Asian success story. It is a living, breathing lesson in how to adapt to the new world without losing your ancient soul. It is a masterclass in the art of the pivot. While many modern cities struggle with a loss of identity and a paralyzing fear of the future, Hanoi reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to survive. We don't even have to be unbroken. We just have to be persistent. We have to remember exactly where we came from, and we must have the courage to rebuild on top of our old foundations. no matter how many times they are leveled by the storms of history. I think about our own grandparents, the ones who rebuilt their lives after the Great Depression, who stood firm after the horrors of World War II, and I realize we share the same resilient blood. Hanoi teaches us that history isn't a heavy burden we are forced to carry. It is the secret, internal strength that allows us to face whatever storm comes next. It is the armor we wear. No matter where you are sitting right now, whether in a quiet suburb in the States, a flat in London, or a bustling city elsewhere, look at the layers of your own life. What are you building on top of your past? What is the red river that both threatens and sustains you? Hanoi has proven for over 1,000 years that the dragon never stops rising. It may rest, it may hide in the mud, but it never stops rising. And neither should we. If this story of Hanoi's heartbeat touched you, or if it made you think about your own capacity for resilience, please share this with someone you love. Let's pass these lessons of endurance down to the next generation, so they know that even from the ashes, something beautiful, complex, and indestructible can grow. And if you want me to tell the story of another city with a similar journey, a place where the past is still breathing in the present, leave a comment below with the name of the city you want to explore. I look forward to continuing this journey with you, through the stories that make this world so incredibly special.